I'm with the Columbia University's Center for Undergraduate Global Engagement. For those of you who are Columbia students, we are the office on campus or remote at this point that works with any undergraduate student who plans to study abroad, as well as who might be interested in any global engagement opportunity. We are also the office that has the pleasure of working with the Kyoto Consortium for Japanese Studies, which is one of our study abroad programs. But Columbia is also the administering institution of this program. So we're really happy to be talking about the KCJS today. I think I want to let Robin introduce herself.
Yep.
So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Lee Feibel. I am also in Columbia's Center for Undergraduate Global Engagement. I'm an associate director there, as well as the advisor for all of our Columbia-led programs in Asia. And so I'll be working with many of you throughout the application process as you're applying to KCJS. And I'm happy to serve as a resource for all of you, from now and through until when your program begins. And I also just want to mention that we will be recording this information session presentation today and hope to make it available on our website later on.
Great, thanks, Robin. And we also see that we have one of our KCJS board members here, Professor Ginger Marcus from Washington University. I don't know if you want to say a quick hello, Ginger? You have to unmute yourself. You're muted.
I know. Sorry. Okay. Hi, everyone. I've had a very long, Ginger Marcus, and I teach Japanese language at Washington University. And I've been on the board of delegates for KCJS for very, very long time, like 20 years, something like that. I don't even know. I don't count anymore. I chaired the board for about 7 years. And my own interest in why I'm so passionate about KCJS is because it was a summer program, just like you're going to hear about, summer program in Kyoto that essentially changed my life. So, professionally, I went on to study Japanese and become a Japanese language teacher. And so I'm very passionate about summer programs in Kyoto. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Professor Marcus. And I'm seeing in the chat, and I actually recognize your name, Trevor. We have a former past participant of the KCJS program, so we're really excited to have him here as well. So thanks so much, Trevor, for showing up. Okay, so I think we should just get started. So should we move to the next slide? Oops, thanks, Robin. Oh, and I think I introduced myself. Again, sorry, my name is Fei Ju, and I'm one of the associate deans in the Center for Undergraduate Global Engagement. So to talk a little bit about the KCJS Consortium, it was established in 1989, and we celebrated our 30th anniversary 2 years ago. So the program has been in existence for quite a while. I think, as Professor Marcus mentioned, she's been involved with the program for at least over 20 years, if not longer. It's a consortium made up of 13 universities. Probably many of you are from some of these member institutions. So by and large, the program is populated with students from these institutions, but the programs are also open to students from other institutions. So if you have a friend who might be interested in Japan and studying in Kyoto as well, feel free to share with your friends and let them know that, they should accompany you to Kyoto sometime in the future, we hope. The program is actually based at Doshisha University in Kyoto, which is a private liberal arts institution that has actually undergraduate and graduate programs. And it's fairly unique when it comes to Japanese institutions because the founder of the university actually attended a small liberal arts college in the United States, and actually then Doshisha itself was developed from that liberal arts sort of mentality, as well as even the physical space, right? Sort of more looks like an American institution where there's a large student union with, shops and cafeterias and bookstores in it, but there's also space for students to sit and lounge. And the campus is full of trees. So I think as an American student, when you walk onto the campus, you'll feel some sort of familiarity, which is a little bit different from some of the Japanese universities, some of the larger public institutions. I think another thing that I really wanted to talk about related to the KCJS is our KCJS staff, our on-site staff, as well as the local instructors. Some of them have been around for the entire time that the KCJS has been in existence, so over 30 years. Our language staff as well have been with the program, some for 15 years, around that. I think the newest faculty member came in 7 or 8 years ago. So all of this to say is that, the staff and the instructors on the ground really, have deep ties in Kyoto, have deep ties within the community, and, are really in a great place to support students, both academically as well as personally and professionally, for any of your interests. And they also, of course, keep in touch with the dozens and dozens of KCJS alumni, which has grown into a broad network as well. So thanks for that. Should we go on to the next slide, Robin?
Mm-hmm. So KCJS offers programs during the summer academic year, fall, and spring. And so today we're going to give an overview of all of those programs, but we're going to start out with the virtual KCJS summer programs. So I'm going to start off with the modern program first. So for the summer modern Japanese program, as many of you saw on the website, we will be offering that virtually this coming summer. We're offering second, third, and fourth year and above Japanese language courses worth 8 points each. And so the intensive curriculum offered on the summer program will really give you the opportunity to complete a full year of one of these Japanese levels over 8 weeks. And so for this coming summer, the instructors at KCJS have designed the curriculum to have synchronous and asynchronous modules. So for the first 2 hours of class each day, students will have communicative practice in a live classroom environment. And then for the final hour, you'll have asynchronous learning with guest lectures, workshops, and discussions with students in Japan. We do plan to have courses take place in the morning Japan time, which would be night around, probably 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. I think some of you may love this and might thrive having classes at night if you're enrolling in the program from the US. Others, it may take some time to adjust to this. But do know that as part of the application process, students will be surveyed about their schedules, and it is possible that some adjustments might be made to the class meeting time to accommodate participants in different time zones. And then in addition to the language instruction, virtual extracurricular activities will be offered to give you insight into Japanese society and culture. And so you'll note, if you do start an online application for the program, you're going to note which level of Japanese you hope to take, but the final course placement will depend upon the results of your placement tests. And all students will take the placement test between June 1st and June 14th. And so obviously our KCJS staff in Kyoto couldn't be with us here today as they're sleeping right now, but we do still want to give you the opportunity to hear from them. So we're going to show you this wonderful short video that they put together covering the highlights of this summer modern program. So if you just bear with me 1 second while I pull this up.
And if you can't, once Robin pulls it up, if you can't see it or hear it, can you please let us know? Okay. I see it up on the screen.
皆さんこんにちは。今日は京都アメリカ大学コンソーシアム KCJS の2021年 夏の日本語プログラムについて説明したいと思います。2021年夏の日本語プログラムは、日本時間の6月21日から8月17日までです。レベルは2年生、3年生、4年生以上の3つ作る予定です。では、担当の先生が各レベルを説明します。
皆さんこんにちは。2年生を教える西又です。
こんにちは。2年生を教える中田です。
2年生はこの元気という教科書と
飛躍という教科書を使って教えます。
8週間楽しく日本語を勉強しましょ
よろしくお願いします。
こんにちは。3年生を教えます前口織江です。3年生はこの上級の扉という教科書を使って勉強します。その後で小説も読んでみようと思っています。一緒に勉強しましょう。
皆さんこんにちは。4年生を担当する中村逸子と申します。4年生では JLPT、N2、N1 の文法を勉強したり、新聞や雑誌の記事を読んだり、小説を読んだ後にみんなで話し合ったりします。また、インタビュープロジェクトというのを行います。このプロジェクトを通して実践的な学びを深めてもらえればと思っています。Zoom 上ではありますが、皆さんと学び合いができるのを楽しみにしています。
授業は日本時間の午前9時から午後12時までの3時間です。最初の2時間は先生とクラスメートと一緒に文法や単語を勉強したり、読み物を読んだり、会話を練習したりします。3時間目は自分で勉強する、ゲストレクチャーやワークショップに参加する、そして日本人学生と話すといった活動をする時間です。この3時間目にする活動をもう少し説明します。オンラインでの文化体験として、関西弁講座、能、粘土を使った和菓子作り、禅仏教についてのレクチャーやワークショップを計画しています。それから週に1、2回、日本人学生と話す時間もあります。授業で勉強した文法や単語を使って会話を練習したり、読み物のテーマについて話し合ったり、いろいろな話をしながら日本人と交流することができるでしょ
ショアです。
う。戸田です。
ホルスティンです。
課外活動は私たち3人のスタッフがお手伝いします。楽しいサマープログラムにしましょ
う。申し込みの締め切りは3月22日です。詳しい情報はこのウェブサイトを見てください。
Okay, just checking, can everyone see the PowerPoint again? Okay, yes, okay, thank you. Okay, so hopefully that video gave you a sense of, who will be teaching the courses on site, kind of how they will be structured during this, with this new virtual model. And we'll get you a little bit excited about what you can expect this summer. So I'm going to move on to our classical program. So our virtual summer classical program will offer the Introduction to Classical Japanese 1 and 2 course, which will be taught by Professor Matthew Fraley from Brandeis University, and he has taught with KCJS over the past few summers. The classical program is designed for students who have proficiency in modern Japanese, but usually haven't studied classical Japanese before. So this course will be taught in English, and it'll offer a systematic, intensive introduction to the grammar of classical Japanese, which will enable you to read authentic texts with a dictionary by the end of the term. So the classical Japanese course will take place from 8 a.m. to noon Eastern time, and the program will run for 6 weeks, and students are eligible to earn 8 points for the course. And now we'd like to give you the opportunity to hear from Professor Fraley, who will talk a little bit more about his course.
Hi, my name is Matthew Fraley. I teach East Asian Literature and Culture at Brandeis University. And for the last few years, I've taught the summer classical language program at KCJS. The KCJS program in classical Japanese aims to provide graduate students and advanced undergraduates with thorough training in the grammar of classical Japanese, which is fundamental for anyone who wants to work with pre-modern materials. Students who have studied at least 3 years of the modern language are welcome to apply to the program, which assumes no prior knowledge or exposure to classical Japanese. In the first week or two, students will rapidly acquire a solid understanding of the grammar of classical Japanese that they will practice and refine as we move to read selections from many of the most celebrated works of classical Japanese literature. We will look at scenes from The Tale of Genji, the poems of the Kokinshu, stories of the supernatural from medieval collections, dramatic battles from The Tale of the Heike, and many more. Students will also get a chance to begin learning paleography, how to read cursive forms of Japanese. The course features intensive instruction in a small group format. The summer curriculum offers roughly the equivalent of a full year's course in classical Japanese. Japanese grammar is a beautiful thing to learn unto itself, but studying it will also sharpen your understanding of modern Japanese. The literary works we read in the original will deepen your grasp of classical Japanese language and enrich your understanding of Japanese culture. Please consider joining us.
Okay, so who is eligible to apply for our summer programs? Both the modern and classical Japanese programs are open to undergraduates and graduate students in good academic and disciplinary standing. And we're also welcoming applications from recent graduates as well. We're looking for students who have a minimum of a 3.0 cumulative GPA, as well as a minimum 3.0 average GPA in your Japanese language courses. And then for modern Japanese specifically, there's different language requirements based on the level you're hoping to take. So for those of you interested in the second year, you need to have completed at least 1 year of college level Japanese or the equivalent. For third year, you need to have finished 2 years of college level Japanese. And then for fourth year, you need to have completed 3 years of college level Japanese or the equivalent. And as Professor Fraley said, classical Japanese applicants should have completed at least 3 years of college level Japanese. And so if you haven't already done so, I recommend that you do get started on your summer application, since the deadline is coming up very soon on March 22nd. To find our online application, you would visit our Undergraduate of Global Engagement website listed there at the bottom. You'd navigate to the KCJS summer page, either the modern or the classical Japanese page. And then you'd click that blue button right there, start your application. And so the application, I think, is pretty, straightforward. You'll be asked to complete a couple of questionnaires. You'll be asked to submit a personal statement as well as an official or unofficial transcript. Modern Japanese applicants, you will need to request a language recommendation from a Japanese instructor who taught you in a recent course. And you'll also be required to submit a Japanese writing sample. Classical Japanese applicants are asked to submit one academic recommendation. So this is a non-language recommendation from an instructor who can comment on your academic skills. So in addition to the application, you can also find the program costs on our UGE website. And so for classical Japanese, Columbia students will be paying $4,330, and non-Columbia students, the fee is $4,435. This is just a bit more to include the transcript fee as noted here. And then for modern Japanese Columbia students, the fee is $5,400 as well. And then for non-Columbia, it's $5,505. And so if you are looking for funds to help fund your summer abroad in Kyoto, we do hope you consider the KCJS Summer Scholarship, which we do have. So whether you're a Columbia student, non-Columbia student, undergraduate, or graduate, you're all eligible to apply for this award. The governing board has set aside funds for this, and the number and the amount of scholarships vary, but each award usually ranges from about $500 to $2,000. So if you've already started a KCJS application through our website, you'll see what's called a UGE administered scholarship form in your application. So you can just click on that, complete the form if you're interested in applying. And the deadline for this scholarship application is the same as the program application, which is March 22nd. And I did just want to mention a couple of funding opportunities that are specifically open to Columbia students. So first is the Shirato Fund for Japanese Language Study. This is run through the East Asian Language and Cultures Department here at Columbia. They will offer two $2,000 scholarships for undergrads and grads studying Japanese this summer. That deadline is coming up on March 31st. Also, the Weatherhead East Asian Institute at Columbia administers their training grant. So this provides about $2,500 in support of undergraduates doing projects in East Asia, including language learning. And Weatherhead also has the Theodore DeBerry Undergraduate Language Study Fellowship. And this provides a maximum award of $10,000 for intensive study of Japanese. And so note that this award is open to non-US citizens and permanent residents only who are Columbia or Barnard students. You'll see that the deadline is today, March 12th. I know it's kind of coming up, very quickly, but I did just want to mention it in case some of you were already looking into it. Feel free to contact Weatherhead, if you have further questions. And also to be eligible for this award, as well as the Weatherhead training grant, do note that you need to plan to study third year Japanese or above on our program, or they also accept applications from students who plan to study second year Japanese if you've already achieved a high advanced proficiency or fluency in another East Asian language. So that sounds kind of complicated. So just for example, if you're a native Chinese speaker and a Chinese citizen, and you're applying to study, for example, second year Japanese on the KCJS program, you would be eligible to apply as well. And finally, for Columbia students in Columbia College, Cs, and General Studies who demonstrate financial need, there is a new Global Learning Scholarship for the summer through our office. So these will be partial or full scholarships awarded to students, which can be applied to the program tuition costs. So this is brand new, kind of hot off the press. And so this application for this scholarship, I believe, should be added to the KCJS summer application online shortly. And so that's sort of an overview of our summer programs. I'd ask if you could please hold maybe the questions till the end. And now I'll just transition over to the academic year, fall and spring program.
Oh, Robin, can I just jump in for 1 second? Sure. I just wanted to mention for all of the students who are not Columbia students on the information session, we ran through the Columbia specific sessions because this is our session for our own students as well as for the broader KCJS. But if you're not a Columbia student, make sure that you're in contact with either your study abroad office or your department or other resources, because we know that a lot of our partner institutions have different resources for summer funding as well. So please make sure to check into the opportunities for scholarships that you might have on your own campuses too.
Thank you, Faye.
Sure.
So we've had a number of students in the past do our KCJS summer program, fall in love with Kyoto and want to develop their Japanese language skills even more, and then continue on to our fall or spring or full year programs. And so some of you may be considering this. And so we'll talk a little bit now about our academic year, fall and spring program. So these are really the major components of our semester and year program. First, all students will take one Japanese language course. So that's either at the second, third, or fourth year level. These courses are taught for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. Students will also take subject or disciplinary courses. These are usually taught in English in the afternoons. They tend to meet, twice a week for 90 minutes or once a week for 3 hours. And again, students choose 2 of these courses as part of their course load. We will also, if you do participate in the semester program, you'll also have access to a limited number of courses through the Associated Kyoto program, or AKP. And this is another study abroad program based on the Doshisha campus. So I think this started a couple of years ago, where AKP and KCJS students could cross-register in each other's courses. So that will be an option available to you as well. And I'm just going to jump ahead to the next slide just so you can sort of see the types of subject courses that'll be offered this fall and then next spring. You can kind of see the different subject areas. And then I did want to mention as well that sort of a highlight of some of the disciplinary courses is the fact that we sometimes get a handful of local Japanese students from Doshisha University or Kyoto University who might enroll as well. So you might have that opportunity to study alongside local, a couple of local Japanese students. And I think Faye is going to share a couple more details about some of the disciplinary courses. Oh, Faye, you're muted.
Yeah, to go back to the language courses that take place in the morning, part of the language courses also include the community involvement project, which is a fantastic opportunity for all students to get involved in the local community. And that can happen in a bunch of different ways, right? It could be signing up to learn an instrument or a craft. It could potentially be joining a student circle or student club on the Doshisha campus or one of the other campuses. You see a picture of a student who's joined, it looks like a fencing club, I believe. Students have done Japanese archery and International Students Club, community involvement, all sorts of different types of clubs. But students can also choose to volunteer at a local organization. So there is this local small restaurant right in the neighborhood of Doshisha, and they're this fantastic little place. If you've ever done sort of backpacking traveling, it has that kind of vibe, right? Very kind of open, very friendly. They sell all sorts of local crafts. But some of our students who volunteer there join the club because there's social justice issues that they're quite involved in. They're very inclusive in terms of all different types of people, which I guess can be a little bit unique in the Japanese culture. So they're very kind of inclusive in terms of who works there in the kitchen, and our students get involved and they're chopping vegetables and doing all sorts of things. But this local little restaurant also has community programming, right? So, in the evenings, they might have lectures or talks or performances. And that's just one example of some of the different opportunities that you might be able to be involved in. As well, students who might have ties to either research labs or with particular faculty members. There's also the opportunity to get involved in your community through those types of connections as well. So it's an integral part of the language course, but it also requires some commitment outside of language program. So I think it's a great opportunity for students to learn about it and to know, to kind of get outside and involved with the local community.
If I could just add one thing to that, I had pre-med students who've done their community involvement project in a hospital working with terminally ill children. So, you know, even for pre-med, there are opportunities that you can find in the community, the CIP, what we call the CIP, Community Involvement Project.
Yeah. And what's really, I mean, I think to just add on to Professor Marcus's point, I think because you know, the consortium is fairly big and different faculty members are involved, as well as the deep local connections that the KCJS team has on the ground, you know, there's opportunities to find different ways for you to get involved based on, you know, your interests, individualized interests. In terms of the disciplinary courses, there's a couple of new courses maybe that we should highlight, which is, I mean, just generally, I think that it is useful to know that the courses that take place in the afternoon are taught by faculty who usually have full-time appointments at one of the local Japanese institutions. They tend to be expats who are living and working in Japan, and they're teaching all these different subjects. And so many of our faculty have taught for the program before. So, you know, the labor and working life in Japan is taught by a local sociologist. Japan and East Asia is taught by a local international relations faculty member. Our project-based courses are new, and those are in response to students' interest in having the opportunity to work more in the local language. So the intermediate project-based course is taught by one of the faculty member and focuses on social issues. So in the past, some of these topics have included the election, immigration and global mobility, education. And so, you know, we'll have to get some more information about what topics are being planned for this fall and for this upcoming year, but really interesting sort of contemporary current issues that are on the minds and probably in the news in Japan and maybe more globally and broadly. The advanced course is also taught by one of the KCJS instructors, and it's focused on identifying somebody to do more research on. So preparing for interviewing somebody in a field that you are interested in. So identifying that person, reaching out to that person, doing research, preparing interview questions, and then ultimately producing an article that can be shared, as well as something that can be shared either at a presentation or in an oral way. And so it's deep and intensive work that takes place and allows students to continue to use their Japanese. And then there's also the independent study option, which is open to students either semester. And it's a great way for students who have a particular interest. Maybe they're working on senior theses topics or papers to take the opportunity while they're in Kyoto to study on a topic more deeply. We had a student from one of our member institutions who was a dance major or performing arts major, but who had a deep interest in peace studies. And he spent his time in Japan working on an independent study, going to Hiroshima, going to Nagasaki, talking to, I think, the head of the museum at Hiroshima, and you know, pulling some of that local information into a project that he completed while at the KCJS, and then building on that to finalize his senior paper for his major back at his home institution. So just it's a really great opportunity for students who have some research interests in Japan. And then, yeah, and I don't have that much more to say, but yeah. Thanks, Robin.
This is yours as well.
Is this me? Okay. So in addition to the academic program, there's a pretty vibrant co-curricular and also extracurricular life that the KCJS will organize. So many of the courses, especially the afternoon courses, will have field trips. involved related to the topic. And in some cases, the Japanese courses too might have a course related field trip, especially I think when you get to the upper levels. There usually is an overnight group trip either during the semester, but because of the ongoing pandemic issues right now, we're not planning to offer that overnight trip. So it's suspended for the fall. I think the team is looking to see if there's any other ways or any other opportunities to do some sort of group activity, but it really will be dependent on what the local guidelines might be. Because it's the program is also based at Doshisha on the local campus, and there's opportunities to participate in different lectures, academically, scholarly, and then also because we have such a big alumni network, oftentimes alumni come back to campus and visit the KCJS, and the team always organizes the alum to talk to the current group of students, which is fantastic. I was there last fall for a short visit, and there was a group of 4 alumni that had studied together, and they were back in Kyoto to celebrate somebody's birthday. I think like a big birthday, maybe a 30th birthday. So it was really fun and interesting to just hear about their time when they were in Kyoto, but also what they're all doing now and how the KCJS impacted their time. There's also opportunities that the KCJS organizes so that students can connect with the local students, right? I think as Robin mentioned earlier, there'll be 2 to 3 local university students who participate in the afternoon courses. There's also opportunities to be matched with conversation partners. And also the KCJS organizes different opportunities, fun sort of activities such as cooking or sushi making or calligraphy, and other opportunities, and invite local Japanese students to join, whether it be through the students clubs or just through their network of students. And then, of course, there's lots of opportunities for you as a student to get involved in whatever way you wish. You're either on the campus or through the city, and then, on your own. But the KCJS is there to provide you with as much information or connections so that you can sort of pursue your interests. One of the activities I think that students like to undertake during the semester is independent travel. So we don't know what that's going to look like in the fall. What we're planning right now is really to follow the local guidelines. And so right now, things are, I think I'm jumping ahead, but right now, things are pretty open as long as there's the social distancing guidelines and then the masking. But the travel piece of things may be a little more limited come fall. So it's just a heads up. And we'll have more information as students apply and get accepted to sort of let everybody know what the policies and procedures and protocols are going to be in the fall. And so that every step of the way, you have the information you need so that you can make the decisions you need to make when it comes to fall study abroad.
Now I think we'll move on to talk a little bit about housing. So if you've, looked into the KCJS program before or had friends who have done the program, you probably already know that homestays and getting to live and know a local family is usually a highlight of the program. As you can imagine, we've had to make some modifications to the program due to COVID. And so for this coming fall, homestays will not be offered, and single apartments will be the only housing option. We will try to place students in groups of 2 to 3 in the same building when possible. And the apartments that we rent from a rental agency are equipped with, the basic furnishings and household and kitchen appliances. The apartments are usually located about a 20 to 30 minute commute from KCJS. And in terms of meals, just note that students would be responsible for making breakfast and dinner on their own, but would be given a subsidy for lunch. And so, as I'm sure you know or have heard from others, usually doing a homestay is a great window for you to learn about, local Japanese life and the culture. And so living in single apartments will be a little bit of a different experience, but I think it just allows you the opportunity to be proactive in getting yourself connected to the local culture. And so a lot of the activities we mentioned, the community involvement project, the different activities that the program already incorporates, I think really taking advantage of those, I think will help build those connections with the local Japanese community during your term abroad, during your term. And then I know Faye wanted to mention a little bit about the last point.
Yeah, so just a quick note, again, as we're considering modifications because of the pandemic, I just wanted to mention that we're also making plans in case everybody needs to quarantine at the beginning of the program, like people do now for 10 days. So we're making plans for how that might happen. And we'll share more details, upon acceptance. And then also, if students need to quarantine or self-isolate anytime during the program, they'll be able to do so because they'll be living in these single apartments. So I just wanted to mention that, those types of, as needed, that is in place. And we'll share more information that, if in fact we do need to quarantine for 2 weeks upon arrival, what that might look like. So just know that we're working on it. Oh, and this is me too. So just a little bit more just about planning in the age of the coronavirus. So I think so I wanted to talk a little bit more about the current situation, both for Japan and then in Doshisha. So currently there is restrictions for entry into Japan. It's fairly limited and not really for new students, not really for new students to go into the country. So the Doshisha semester is actually beginning in April, and the international students program is actually moving all remotely, right? Because the students cannot enter the country. So as far as we understand, that's probably going to be through, it'll be through the semester for this group of students, so through August. But I think Doshisha has every intention, if possible, to move forward with in-person programming. I mean, currently the university is sort of, in action, right? All of the staff are on campus. They're planning for the new group that starts in April, the incoming first year students, the degree seeking students. They're planning an opening ceremony. They're planning a graduation ceremony for those who've just graduated. So there's activity and life on the campuses. But right now the entry requirements are restricted. So then I wanted to talk a little bit more about the KCJS and what we're planning. So we're also planning for an in-person component, and starting to work through what some of the modifications might need to be in the fall, as we've already mentioned. But, at some point as a program, we'll have to make a decision about whether or not the fall semester can move forward. So we believe that will happen probably sometime in June, right? Maybe late June, because we also need to think about you as a student so that you can make your plans about how to move forward, and thinking about, if we're able to move forward as a program, that you'll need to begin to buy flights and you'll need to begin to apply for visas and things like that. And so we'll give you more information, throughout the next couple of months, but I just wanted to mention all of that. The other two things I wanted to just talk quickly about is, especially because everybody's from different institutions and all of our institutions have different travel policies that are in effect or not. So as an example, here at Columbia, our university travel policy currently restricts any travel, and it is in effect now. And, we have planned for it to be in effect in the summer. It's not officially come out yet, but we're not able to support students who plan to study abroad in the summer because the planning needs to happen now. So I think for all of us, we need to stay aware and apprised of what our homeschool university travel policies are not. And I would say that the best place to get that information is to touch base with your study abroad office, because we are all in our study abroad offices keeping apprised of that and working with all of our students to let them know where we are in terms of decision making as a university, where the university is in terms of decision making, and whether or not there will be continued travel restrictions in the fall. And then finally, everybody should sort of have their own backup plans, right? Meaning that, if for any reason you're not able to study abroad in the fall, just to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to make sure that you're continuing with your studies, if that's what your plan is on your home campuses, in terms of course registration, in terms of housing. So work with your study abroad office on that. One question that kind of comes up sometimes is housing, whether or not you're meeting deadlines. And sometimes if you contact the housing office, they may just give you the answer that they always have. But if they don't give you the answer you need, check in with your study abroad office, because I know here at Columbia anyway, we're working with our housing folks and they're being very flexible with students who might have study abroad plans. So it will depend on what your institution is like. Okay. Done with that. You're on mute, Robin.
Thank you, Faye. Sorry. Thank you. And then moving on to the eligibility for our academic year fall and spring programs, similar to what I reviewed for the summer programs. We're looking for undergraduate students in good academic and disciplinary standing. You must have completed at least 1 year of college level Japanese for the fall term and 3 semesters for the spring or the equivalent. And we're also looking for students with a minimum of 3.0 average cumulative GPA, as well as your language GPA at about a minimum of a 3.0. And so in terms of program costs, for the upcoming fall and academic year, the fees still are being determined. So we don't have those finalized just yet. But those will be posted on our website as soon as we have those. But then just to give you a sense for Columbia students who might be on the session today, you will be paying regular Columbia tuition for the program, as well as a program fee. And that covers things like housing, some of your meals, program activities, trips and student services. I know we have a lot of non-Columbia students with us today, and so I'm not going to get into the details about fees for non-Columbia students because they really do vary and depend on your home school. So, billing and costs for consortium students work one way. If you're a visiting student, they work another way. So I would encourage you though to visit our UGE KCJS website and review the fall 2020 costs, just to give you a sense of what students were billed last year. And then if you are looking for funding opportunities to fund your term abroad, I just wanted to mention these 2 national scholarships that are open again to Columbia and non-Columbia students. So many of you may already know about the Freeman Asia scholarship. This is open to US citizens and permanent residents. You must be currently receiving need-based aid on your home campus. They're looking for students with a minimum of a 2.8 GPA. They are really targeting those who have little or no previous experience in Japan. And that application deadline is coming up at the end of this month on March 30th. There's also the Bridging Project scholarships. These are open to US citizens and currently enrolled undergrads. And they offer stipends of $2,500 for students on semester programs and up to $4,000 for students on academic year programs. And that you have a little bit more time if you're eligible for this one. That application deadline is next month on April 16th. And so how to apply for the fall or full year program? That deadline, I do want to note this has been moved up to April 1st. So some of you may have gotten who have started an application may have gotten an email reminder from me just a couple days ago, letting you know about the previous deadline, but do know now that you're welcome to obviously submit if you're ready and everything's complete, but you will actually have until April 1st to submit your application online. And again, you just navigate to our UGE website here, go to the main KCJS page and click on Start Your Application. And some of the application requirements that you'll need to submit, a couple of questionnaires, including a language questionnaire to give us a better sense of your language background, a personal statement, again, a language recommendation from a Japanese instructor who has taught you in a recent college level course, We're also looking for an academic recommendation, so a non-language one from an instructor who can comment on your academic skills. You will need to submit a transcript that can be official or unofficial. And then, as Faye mentioned, that homeschool approval and clearance will be very important. So you'll probably, be having those discussions with your advisors on your home campus about their policies in terms of what study abroad will look like for students from your home school. And so we hope that the session today kind of gave you a good overview and highlights of the summer and academic year program. But if you'd like to learn more, these are just a couple of resources that we have for you. So obviously, as we mentioned, please do visit our Center for Undergraduate Global Engagement website. Again, that's where you will find the online application links, as well as the program fees and all of our contact information if you want to follow up with us. I would also encourage you to visit the main KCJS website. So this is the website managed by our team in Kyoto. That's the second link right there. And that's where you'll find a lot of great videos, course descriptions, for the language courses and for the subject courses. And their website is really robust. And so you'll find a lot of great resources there as well. If you'd like a student perspective on the program, we would recommend that you contact our peer advisor, Zach Armin Klein. He's from Columbia and he participated in the KCJS Spring 2020 program. And so he's happy to talk to you about his experience, which was a little bit unique as that was last spring, when COVID began. And so he's happy to talk with you about his experience on the program. And something that our KCJS Kyoto staff have been doing on their end is they've been organizing virtual alumni talks with a number of KCJS alumni just to learn, kind of where they are now, what interesting things are they doing, and how has KCJS impacted their life and their career. And so you'll find a lot of these really cool virtual talks linked on the main KCJS.jp website. I think they've recently interviewed students who are, work in film production, who have done really cool voiceover work. And so you'll find a list of all of their past talks on their website. And of course, KCJS has a Facebook page, Instagram, and YouTube, which you can find through their sites. In terms of our office, UGE, you can definitely follow us on Instagram. And for Columbia students, if you're sort of just starting out and kind of exploring your study abroad options, I would encourage you to sign up for Study Abroad First Steps. So these are essentially almost like walk-in hours via Zoom, where you can kind of pop in to talk with one of our advisors in the office to kind of ask general questions, talk about your program options, and learn how study abroad works, and sort of the timeline to prepare. So those are kind of drop-in first steps that you can take advantage of. And then we also hold, a number of info sessions like the one today, and a lot of other activities where you can learn more about our programming. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm the main advisor for KCJS in our office. So feel free to email me here, anytime. You can also sign up for a Zoom or advising appointment via our website. And I have office hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, where I can meet with you. Or if those don't work for you, I'm also happy to schedule a time, that works for you. And so I think that's all we had on our end, but we are now happy to take any questions that any of you might have. You can feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question, or feel free to also